Chapter 4. The hurricane makes landfall. Aunt Gloria and Salem came at 6:24 p.m. on Sunday the 23rd, start of our 1-week half-term holiday. It was a fine day with some scattered showers moving northeast. Kat and I watched as a black London cab pulled up outside our house. Aunt Gloria came first. She was tall and thin with straight black hair cut to her shoulders. Kat says the style is called a bob. She wore tight jeans and dark pink sandals. You couldn't help but notice her two big toes sticking out from the gap because they were painted with matching dark pink nail polish and were very bright. But the thing I noticed most was the cigarette holder she had in her hand. A long, slim cigarette was stuck in the end and it was lit. A trail of smoke floated up from it. Kat said Aunt Gloria looked like a fashion editor. Kat has never met a fashion editor, so I don't know how she knew this. Salem was tall and thin with jeans on, like his mother. He wore an ordinary backpack and wheeled Aunt Gloria's suitcase on wheels behind him. His black hair was cut short. His skin was brown. Kat says it was not just brown, but caramel. She says, I should say that he was very good looking. She is always thinking about whether people are good looking or not. I think people just look like who they are. I suppose I am ugly because nobody has ever said I am handsome. People are always saying how pretty Kat is, so I suppose she is. To me, she just looks like Kat. So I don't know if Salem is handsome, but he looked like his thoughts were not in the same place as his body, and I like this about him. I think this is how I often look too. He and Aunt Gloria walked up to our front door through our front garden, which Mum says is the size of a postage stamp. In fact, it's 3 meters by 5, and I once worked out that I could fit 22,500 stamps. Before they had a chance to ring the doorbell, Mum flung open the door. Glow, she said. Faye! Aunt Gloria shrieked. There was a muddle of arms and laughing, and I wish I could go up to my room. Behind them, Salem stood looking on. His eye and my eye met. Then he lifted his shoulders, gazed up at the sky, and shook his head. Then he smiled straight at me, which meant that he and I could become friends. And that felt good. I only had 3 other friends, and they were all grown up. They were Mum, Dad, and Mr Shepherd, my teacher at school. I didn't count Kat as my friend, because she was rude to me most of the time and interrupted me when I spoke, so she can't be a friend. Ted, Mum was saying, say hello to Auntie Glow. I looked at Aunt Gloria's left ear. Hello, Aunt Gloria. I put out my hand for her to shake. She dragged me into a hug that smelled of cigarettes and perfume and made my nostrils all itchy. Hello, Ted, she said. Just call me Glow, won't you? That's what everyone calls me. I escaped from her arms. God, Faith, she went on. He's the spit of our father, don't you remember? Dad in his suit and tie, even on holiday. Ted's the image of him. There was silence. It was true that I wore my school trousers and my shirt every day, even if I wasn't going to school. It's what I like to do. Kat was always on me to put on a t-shirt and jeans and be normal and chilled, but that made me want to wear my uniform even more. Salem said, No, Mum. He looks a right cool dude. The formal look's all the rage now again. Didn't you know? I said. The look's a disguise, Mum. It hides the rebel within. Right, Ted? I nodded. It felt good being called a rebel. Hey, Ted, shake hands? As I shook hands, we were eyeball to eyeball, and I felt my head going off to one side in what caused my duck that's forgotten how to quack look. Welcome to London, Salem, I said. Kat pushed me aside. Hey, Salem, she said, holding out her hand. That's some accent you have. Is that how yours folk tore up north? Hey, Kat, said Salem, taking her hand. Is that how y'all lot talk down south? Everyone laughed their heads off, which is not what literally happened, but I like the idea of heads laughing and becoming detached from their bodies through extreme hilarity, so it's a good way to describe things. I didn't know what was funny, but I laughed too. Mr Shepherd says it's a good idea to laugh when others do it as you mean. Sorry, I read that wrong. Mr Shepherd says it's a good idea to laugh when others do, as it means you can fit in and become friends. How come you talk all South London-y? Salem continued. And Ted sounds like the BBC. That's a very good question, Salem, Mum said. Not even Ted's neurologist can explain it. But come through to the kitchen, everyone. Dinner's ready. In the kitchen, Mum had extended the table to its full length of nearly 2 metres so that six people could fit around it. But as the skinniest person, I had to squeeze in at the far end with my back to the patio door. Mum had covered the surface with a white tablecloth and had made me lay it, because that was my job. Then Kat went round checking I'd put everything the right way round. This was unnecessary, because I'm very good at laying the table. I think of the knife, spoon and fork as an electric current. The knife feeds the end of the spoon, and the front of the spoon feeds the prongs of the fork, and the table edge is the last part. And between each object is a 90-degree angle, so the circuit becomes a perfect square. And if you do that right, nothing ever goes wrong. Kat had put flowers from the garden in a glass vase in the middle and a wooden board with stacks of bread. She'd put out our best tumblers for drinks and folded up paper serviettes into them so that each one stood up over the glass rim like a mitre, our school emblem. She added wine glasses for Dad, Mum and Aunt Gloria. She'd tried putting one at her own place, but Mum whisked it away and called Kat Madam Minx, which is what she calls Kat when she is annoyed with her, but only moderately. We all sat down. Mum served out chicken casserole, one of my favourite things to eat, from a big orange pot. Aunt Gloria talked a lot. She said she and Salem were dead excited to be leaving Manchester as they'd had enough of the rain. I tried to point out that the number of wet hours in the north was far less than people realised, but she'd already moved on to what a dead fast city New York was. I knew by then how people often say dead when they mean very, so I didn't need to ask about that, but I did ask her how a city could be fast. Well, Ted, she said, everything in New York moves in a quick motion, like a film, speeded up. People, cars, even the underground trains. They have express trains that flash past the boring stops. When you're there, you feel as if time is rushing by at twice the normal rate. Which means, Mum, Salem said, you'll grow twice as old. You'll grow old twice as fast in Manhattan. Aunt Gloria laughed. She put an arm out and touched Salem's shoulder. He's such a joker, my boy. Salem's eyes stared at the tablecloth, and I saw his lips move, but no sound came out. Then he saw me looking at him, and his eyes looked up to the ceiling, and he tapped his temple and pointed at Aunt Gloria, grinning. Kat said later that this was the body language for how Salem thought his mother was crazy. Next, he took a mobile phone out of his pocket and put it next to his plate and looked at it very seriously. Mum passed Aunt Gloria the bread. Aunt Gloria said she was off wheat of all kinds because of being on a gluten-free diet. My nutritionists swear by it, she said. Aunt Gloria, I said. I took a slice for myself. Wouldn't it be better for your health to give up cigarettes? Dad coughed, as if something had gone down the wrong way. I read some interesting figures yesterday. If everyone in Britain gave up smoking, the National Health Service would save... Ted, Mum said. Aunt Gloria chuckled. No, Faye. Ted's right to ask. Trouble is, Ted, I'm totally hooked on nicotine and can take or leave bread. She looked over to Kat. You don't smoke, do you, Kat? Kat twisted her serviette around on itself. Course not. I frowned, because I'd seen Kat with a cigarette in her mouth with her school friends only the week before. But Kat, that's... What do you think about going to New York, Salem? Kat interrupted. Salem hunched up his shoulders and smiled, but didn't look up from his mobile. He'll love it, said Aunt Gloria. I just know. The Empire State Building, the Chrysler. Salem adores big buildings. He wants to be an architect one day. Is that right, love? Yeah, I suppose, Salem said. His mobile started ringing with the theme music of James Bond. He said, "Oh, excuse me," and rushed away from the table and out into the hall to answer it. This time, I saw Aunt Gloria's eyes go up to the ceiling. While Salem was gone, a conversation started about what we should do tomorrow. Dad had to go to work, but Mum had the day off from being a nurse, and it was half-term, so the 5 of us could go sightseeing, she said. Kat wanted to ride a riverboat. I wanted to visit the Science Museum. Mum wanted to go to Covent Garden to see buskers. Aunt Gloria wanted to go to all the art museums. Salem returned, putting his mobile back in his pocket. Salem should decide, Dad said. He's the visitor. He wants to go to the Tate Modern, don't you? Aunt Gloria suggested. Salem doubled over with groans and writhed like he'd been poisoned. Ugh. I got to my feet in a panic and nearly put my elbow through the patio door. Everyone else laughed. Oh, he's such a joker. Aunt Gloria said. Salem stood up straight again, looking normal. He stroked the fine line of small dark hairs above his lip. Mum, he said, please, not another art gallery. But the Tate Modern's different. It's an old power station with a vast chimney and tall with a capital T. Yeah, it's full of art. Salem, I said, if you're a practical joker, what's a theoretical joker? Salem considered. Someone who just thinks about playing jokes, but never actually does them. I nodded. That made me the theoretical kind. I often think of pranks I could play on Kat, like telling her that a tsunami is scheduled to come up the Thames at 12:30 and ruin her hairdo. But I never carry them out. What about the zoo? Mum said, or the aquarium? They're not very tall, I said. No, agreed Salem. He scrunched up his eyebrows. I have it. Let's go to the London Eye. The London Eye? Said Kat. Oh, we've been up there twice, Salem. Sorry, read that wrong. We've been up there twice, Salem. It's fantastic. And it's tall, I said. Taller than the Ferris wheel in Vienna. Technically speaking, it's not a Ferris wheel. It's designed more like a bicycle wheel. A giant bicycle wheel in the sky. It rotates once every 30 minutes and Kat kicked my shins, which meant she wanted me to stop talking. Great, Salem said. That's what I want to do. Like Ted says. Fly the bicycle wheel in the sky, please, Mum. Supposing it's cloudy tomorrow? It won't be, Aunt Gloria, I said. We're in the middle of a large anticyclone and the weather is set fair. But the queues. Oh, please, Mum, Salem said. You and Aunt Faye can go and have coffee. Ted, Kat and I will line up, get the tickets. Please? Oh, okay. Only afterwards we'll take a little look at the Tate. All that art in the vast industrial space. I'd like to show Ted and the Andy Warhols. He was an American pop artist who made pictures from adverts and famous people like Campbell's Tomato Soup and Marilyn Monroe. I've heard of him, said Kat. He was a weirdo. He was a cultural icon, said Aunt Gloria. I'd say he embodied the 20th century. Some people even think he might have had, she looked at Mum, you know, what Ted's got. There was a silence. Like I said, Kat said, a weirdo. Mum's lips pressed up tight. I figured out that Kat had made her cross, but I didn't care. I know I'm a weirdo. My brain runs on different operating system from other people's. I see things they don't, and sometimes they see things I don't. As far as I'm concerned, if Andy Warhol was like me, then one day I'd be a cultural icon too. Instead of soup cans and movie stars, I'd be famous for my weather charts and formal suits, and that would be good. It's a deal, Salem said. Art gallery, second. The wheel first. Which was how we decided on the London Eye, or as Salem called it, the wheel. Great, that is chapter 3 and 4 read. I believe Mrs. Barry is reading the next chapter on Monday, so hope you have a great weekend. Bye-bye.